Shalom. Welcome again to Secrets of Meaning, the podcast TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. Thank you very much for joining us in what I promise you will be a very enlightening and informative conversation. As you know, these podcasts are designed to relate to the longevity revolution of which we are all a part of now and raise some issues that affect our families, ourselves, our communities. If you'd like to make a comment or suggestion about the program, please feel free to email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. Visit the website, jewishsacredaging.com, and the Facebook page, which is obviously Jewish Sacred Aging on Facebook. We are very pleased to welcome to our podcast today Rabbi Amy Grossblatt Pessah, the author of an upcoming book, The Wholeness of a Broken Heart. The Wholeness of a Broken Heart, subtitled Pathways to Resilience and Renewal. Amy, welcome. It's nice to see you. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here.
Our honor, please. This book is not ready. It's in the process. So this is coming out the end of June. The book, you said, is going to be published around the holidays. Is that correct?
Right after the holidays, October 13th, but it is available for pre-order already.
And if somebody wanted to do that, how do they do that?
You can go wherever you purchase your books. You can go to Monkfish Publishing. You can go to Indie Press, Bookshop, Amazon, of course, Barnes & Noble, anywhere where you purchase your books.
What's the title mean? The Wholeness of a Broken Heart.
Sounds a little bit of an oxymoron, doesn't it?
Such is life.
Exactly. That's pretty much the title. Right. So we have this idea of what does it mean? How can we have whole hearts when they are broken? And for anyone who has been alive or as a human being on the planet, we all experience loss and illness and brokenness in its many forms. And so what I wanted to convey through the title was the idea of how can we have a whole heart when it is broken? And if you look at the cover, there's an image of a kintsugi heart. Now, kintsugi is a Japanese art form that takes broken pottery and glues it together with metallic gold and creates something that is potentially even more beautiful than the original piece. And so for me, that was really an important message after the loss I experienced in my own life, the loss that I've seen as a professional and doing a lot of pastoral care and counseling is how can we still have whole hearts when they have been broken and shattered in so many ways? And it's through that process of kintsugi, of gluing it together with golden threads and golden material, that we create a full heart that is whole even in the midst of brokenness.
So the loss that you're talking, which informs the book, is your son, correct?
Yes. So that is definitely a very big part of my story. We have a 20-year-old son who died 7 years ago, February 14th of 2019, from brain cancer. And while I've always had this sort of penchant for looking at life and trying to figure out, finding the silver linings or wanting to focus on the good and the joy because there's so much of it in our life, there are times when our life is so overwhelmed by sadness and brokenness. And that specifically was one of these moments for me, was in the death of my son. It was pretty quick. It was 9 months. It was unexpected. And having said that, while that is an integral part of the book, I didn't want this to be solely a grief memoir. That would have been a different format. I wanted to see my son's death as a very important, transformative chapter in my own life, but I didn't want to see it as the entire book of my entire story. And so in my book, I do talk about things like COVID, all of the loss that came with the pandemic and hurricanes, natural, horrible, human as well, events that happen.
You write in the book, there's this a lovely quote. One of the hardest parts of being human is experiencing pain, physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual, unquote. That's a great line. I want to ask you about the spiritual pain because people, kind of understand the physical pain. Everybody's had it. Emotional pain. I got depressed. I didn't get the job, broke up. We rarely talk about, from the Bima or anyplace else, spiritual pain. Could you unpack that a little bit?
Sure. This idea of the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, and the spiritual is drawn from the mystical tradition in Judaism. It's referred to as the four worlds. So these four worlds, the physical, the emotional, the intellectual or the mental, and the spiritual, are grounded in this understanding that we live in all four of these worlds at the same time. Whether we're aware of it or not is a different story, but we inhabit these four realms. And so for me, when we talk about the spiritual realm, it could look different. It could be people who are agnostic or atheist and don't have a belief in God or have a questioning uncertainty. So there's a sense of a spiritual loss or a spiritual wondering because you don't really believe or know what's out there if you might believe. And then for those who do believe, there comes a time where there's doubt, right? So I like to think of faith as a dance between doubt and belief. Because when we have faith, and I won't speak for everyone, I'll speak for myself and many people I have been in conversation with, when we have faith, we also sometimes have doubt. And so for me, what was incredibly challenging was I actually became a rabbi later in life. I was ordained a month before my son died. And I remember being in the hospital and saying, having these conversations with God, are you kidding me? You want me to go out and do your work in the world, and this is what you're giving me? Now, my intellectual side, that's not what I believe. I don't believe that God caused this. And my emotional response was, how could you do something like this? Right? So sometimes there is cognitive dissonance between these four places of how we are in the world. And so it took quite a while for me to reconfigure my spiritual path. After my son died, I said, I felt like my life was like a Jenga tower. You know, the kids' game where they're interlocking wooden pieces and you pull out a piece, right? Each person who's playing the game. And then eventually the person who pulls out the wooden piece and the tower falls, they're the loser of the game. It felt like after my son died, somebody came to my life with a sledgehammer and destroyed my Jenga tower. And it was really going back to those pieces one by one and picking them up and saying, okay, does this fit in my life? Is this the same belief I had about God before my son died? Is this the same belief I had about God before I heard about my family member's illness? And so it's been a continual process to discern and evaluate, and it has taken work. After my son died, I have a very dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Lenny Berkowitz, and he sent me a message and said, I'm having my second bar mitzvah. I'd really like for you to be at synagogue. And it was very soon after my son had died. And I love Lenny. I value our friendship, and I wanted to be there for him. So I get in my car and I'm getting ready to back out of my driveway and I slam on the brakes and I look up and I say, God, I just want to let you know, I am not going to pray to you. I am going to support Lenny Berkowitz, and that's why I'm here. You will hear not one word from me. And I released my foot from the brake, continued driving, and I sat there. I sat there the entire service. The only words that I recited were Mourner's Kaddish.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an example of what it means to be in a broken place with one's spiritual life.
But you write in the book and you continue to talk about resilience. You have this quote, I think, I don't know whether it was from Sachs or somebody, the glass is half full or half empty, which misses the point that the glass is always refillable. which is a great quote. I mean, it's a great line. It's a great line. So
Thank
you
you.
went from, the anger, almost like the Kubler-Ross stages, but in a sense, you've refilled that glass. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's been very challenging. And, when I think about and I go through my life, there's so much beauty in the world and I don't want to miss it. And so as broken as my heart is, how can I pivot? How can I see things differently? How can I change my narrative? Years ago, when I had picked our middle son up from high school, this was many years ago now, and it was after his brother had died and he had had a hard day. Just feeling a little bit, as we say, broigus in Hebrew, like a little bit out of sorts and angry. And I remember saying to him, like, I get it. You have every reason to be angry. We're all angry. And here's the thing. When you go through life and the glasses that you're wearing are angry glasses, everything that you see is going to be through the lens of anger. And if you wear your sad glasses, everything's going to be seen through the lens of sadness. And guess what? If you wear your gratitude glasses, everything you see will be through the lens of gratitude. And so it's a practice. It takes time. And it doesn't mean that there aren't days and moments where I am overcome with sadness and anger. And I realize it doesn't serve me. It's not how I want to experience life. It's not how I want to go through the world. And I'll share that I was a spiritual person my whole life. I have been. I was, it was through raising my oldest son, Yossi, the one who died, that put me even more so on my spiritual path. He was a challenging child. And it was through him that I needed to start meditating and being contemplative and exploring my spirituality. And so through that process, I realized even after my anger, I needed to come back to who I was. I had to re-equilibrate. And I can't go through the world not noticing miracles and signs. It's not who I am. It didn't feel good inside when we talk about, you mentioned the physical world as well. Physically, I wasn't feeling well. And it wasn't until I allowed myself to reboot and reconnect spiritually that I physically felt well again.
I mean, you talk about the fact, as Judaism teaches, we're a holistic system.
Exactly.
So the grief, whatever we go, it impacts our health, physical, emotional, spiritual, has to, which is why community is. You talk about, I think towards the end of the book, if I remember correctly, I think you called it post-traumatic growth. But when I read it, what I'm really sensing coming out of that is something you just alluded to. The power of community, a faith community, friendship community, et cetera, is absolutely essential, which is what Shiva is all about. I mean, this is community. How in your journey in this resilience renewal, how important has your community been to you?
I don't have enough words. The value of community has been so extraordinary. We would not have been able to get through this horrific event without our community. They fed us for so many months, literally. People delivered food to our houses. Our son was on a special diet. They cooked to his dietary constraints. They visited, slept over when we needed support. They invited us for Shabbat meals. So that was just our closest friends. And then it just rippled out. People we didn't know as well would send us cards and support and continue to reach out. And then my synagogue community was so amazingly supportive. And they didn't say anything and they didn't judge me when they saw me in services that day, not praying, not standing up for Lenny Berkowitz's bar mitzvah. They just let me be. And they came over and they supported me and they stood with me and they witnessed me. And I feel like that is such an important element of going through grief or loss. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most severe, the most horrible tragedy, but having people in our lives who are willing to witness what we're going through, not fixing, not coming up with solutions, not trying to make us feel better, just witnessing and allowing us to be. I remember it was after the death of my son that we had our first high holidays without him as part of our family. And I thought about, do I want to go? Do I not want to go? Rebellious, my inner 2-year-old wanted to just, eat on Yom Kippur and do everything I wasn't supposed to do and not go to services. And once again, it's not who I am. So I went to services. And during that time, I sat in the back and I had 2 of my dear soul sisters on both sides of me. And I looked around the community and there were community members, including our wonderful Rabbi David Baum, wearing the kippah that we had given out for my son's bar mitzvah. And it was in that moment that I realized this is so freaking hard and it sucks, but I don't have to do it alone. And there was such relief in the idea of not having to do this alone. I believe it's in the Talmud where the rabbis talk about when we do Bikur Cholim and we visit the sick, that our visit takes away 1/60th of their illness.
Correct.
And so that's what it felt like. Each person was helping to take away 1/60th, or maybe in my case, 1/1,000,000th. Community is so, so key, and I'm beyond grateful.
Well, it's what we call the power of presence.
Exactly. Yes.
You don't have to say anything. But
yes. And sometimes it's better off not to say anything.
No, most times. Yeah. You write in the book a really lovely, it kind of follows up on what you're saying. Quote, Judaism provides a roadmap for how to live in the bittersweet, unquote. It's a great quote.
Thank you.
Because the rituals, well, how important to you through the renewal resilience process, but also now in your own practice, how important are rituals?
Very, very important. I use them regularly. I found myself craving ritual, and it helps to really ground and again bring us into the present moment. So a ritual I'll share that I actually created with my family when we moved out of the house that we raised our kids in for most of their lives. We'd been in the house maybe about 19 years or so, and it's time to say goodbye. And this was, again, after the death of our son. And so there were so many emotions. For some in my family, I think it was a relief to be leaving that space. For others, it was hard because it was the place where we all lived together. And what did it mean to be moving to a new place? And so I decided that we needed a ritual. So I actually created several rituals to help us move from our home. The first was that I had a girlfriends gathering. There was a room, a special study in our house where it was like my meditation room and my library. And we would meet several times a year and hang out and support each other. And so I reconvened that group of women for one last time. And we did a review of the kind of conversations we had in that place and how our lives had changed since we started meeting. And then I had a group of our closest friends whose kids grew up in our house. We had a little bit of a shindig party send off. I had my daughter create a Shutterfly book of pictures, different rooms in the house, and everybody wrote a memory that they had of that room in the house. We created a bingo game where it was had Shabbat dinner or watched a family argument, watched the World Cup soccer game. And so we played that framly, which are friends who are family bingo. And then the final is we had our family of 4 walk from room to room. And we shared memories that we wanted to take with us of what unfolded in that room. And interestingly, I got a lot of good stories I didn't know about because, you're
I'm
not going to tell your parents those stories.
sure you did.
So that was, a secret bonus on my part. But once we completed those 3 segments of the ritual process, I was able to leave our house with, I would say, a broken and full heart. Right? It felt very broken because of everything that had transpired in that home, and it was whole and full because of the power of ritual.
You talk in the subtitle about renewal, and you play around with the root chet daled shin, and the hitpa ale. If I remember my Hebrew grammar.
Yes, exactly.
And that's about the limit of my memory of my Hebrew grammar. But the hitpa ale of the root hit chad shout, which really, when I read it and started to think about it, is self renewal, isn't it? Talk to me about how you play around with that verb and how you understand that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for picking that up and for braving into the realm of Hebrew grammar. Right. So the root.
I tiptoe my toe in and then I leave.
Okay. So we'll try to be very, very simple. So the word for new is chadash. And in order to mean to renew, it becomes a reflexive verb, right? That's the verb form you were talking about, that hitpa'el. So it's hit chadesh. You can still hear the hit chadesh. So it's in there, but it's reflexive. And so when I think about the idea of renewal, I wonder and I question, what is my role in this? How do I renew? How do I come back to? It might not look the same. It likely won't look the same. So many of us want to go back to the way things were, right? We have this idealized notion of things were so much better in the past and I don't know, were they? In some cases, maybe, but in some cases, I think the mind is a beautiful organ which has a selective memory, right? And so we don't always remember what happened in the past. And yet each of us has the ability to reinterpret our narratives and to renew our narratives. I've been a teacher for many years in the Wise Aging program. And so if you are familiar with that, which you might be, or some of your listeners might be, there's an activity where you create the river of life, where you go through and you look at the key moments and the key people in your life. And you try to find themes. And one of the goals of this river of life is to perhaps reinterpret or revisit or renew an understanding that you might have had in the past, but you see it differently now, right? So let's say growing up, you saw yourself as someone who wasn't particularly skilled in fill in the blank. And then you start to look at your river and you say, wait a minute, that's actually not a true statement. I did a really good job of that here, and I did a really good job here. And so can I renew? Can I revisit? Can I reinterpret my narrative so that it's going to serve me better and it will send me into the rest of my river of life with a new, deeper, perhaps more helpful and supportive understanding of who I actually am in the world?
Yeah. And the renewal takes, or the hitchad show takes courage. It takes a risk. It's like Lech Lecha in Genesis 12. You don't know, you may not know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't stand still.
Yeah. And you're 100% right? We got to take risks.
And I mean, you talk about that in the book, but Judaism, in its brilliance, in that concept that we all talk about, is a civilization that says you can't stand still in life. You're going to move forward. So you have to be willing to risk and have the faith in yourself to take the risks, which is part of the liberating concept of what it means to be Jewish. It's a very liberating freedom civilization. Rabbi Amy Grossblatt Pessah, the book, The Wholeness of a Broken Heart, Pathways to Resilience and Renewal, being published in October. You can pre-order in the usual places. Before we run out of time, got to ask you this question because it flows through your book. And as I'm reading the book, I'm saying, got to ask this lady this question.
Okay, bring it on.
Do you believe in angels?
I want to say yes, but I would like you to define what you mean by angels.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with rabbinic give and take, you've just seen a perfect example of what do you mean by what do you mean? Now, this is exactly how the Talmud is structured, and we could go on for about 4 or 5 pages. So do you believe, because my sense is in your book that you really do, but Ness is a heavenly angel, but there are human beings who are angels and who, when you meet them, sometimes in good or not so good situations, can have a really powerful impact. You believe that, don't you?
I believe it 100% because I've experienced it. And I have spoken to many other people who have experienced it as well. So yes, when you're talking about angels, whether they are divine angels or human angels, which is why I wanted a little clarification, but I will say yes to both. I do believe there are divine angels and I do believe there are human angels. And we know that each of us has a piece of divinity within us. And so perhaps there is that merging of the divine human element. And I feel that people, at least for me in my life and for many others, have shown up, right? The right person at the right time. The Hebrew, since we were speaking about Hebrew, for angel is malach, which also means a messenger. And so can we see people who come into our lives and our world as messengers from the Holy One?
And you get a voice of people who have passed on, who have died, but there is that energy. I don't know. I struggle still now with the right English word for it because I don't think there is an English word for it. But that energy or that voice or that spirit, that ruach, that occasionally comes right into your brain and in your soul.
Yeah.
And speaks to us.
Absolutely.
Speaks to us.
Yes.
But it takes courage for us, does it not, to listen, to have the courage to listen to that?
Yes, I've had to learn the hard way. When I don't listen, the outcome is usually not so positive. And so I've learned, okay, I hear you. You know, I do check in and do some discerning, right? It's not like I hear something or feel something and immediately jump to it. I'll sit with it and go into conversation and meditation and say like, okay, is this for real? Is this something for me? Is it something that I should know about? Do you want me to be a participant in this? Like I will engage in a conversation to check in to see what that malach, what that angel messenger is here for.
And you never know when you're going to meet that malach.
That's true.
That's part of the challenge. Let's say challenge or fun.
Challenge and gift, right? Like what would it be like if we went through our lives with such open eyes waiting to meet the messengers in our lives?
And you never meet them. You have to be, well, anyway. I think if you set yourself as I'm going to look for the messenger, you're going to find a lot of false prophets.
What about each of us being a messenger, right? Like maybe we can help bring somebody's puzzle piece to them, to quote Rabbi Lawrence Kushner's
That's
poem.
that chadash. That's that Hebrew word. And another high holiday sermon, which we don't have time for. Amy, thank you very, very much for joining us today. Good luck with the book.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, it's fun. I enjoyed the book. I wish you good luck with that and hopefully it's going to get a lot of play and a lot of legs, and especially in synagogues and book clubs and Jewish organizations who really, want to explore this journey that you've been on and what it means, because everybody's on that journey in their own way. So thank you. Take care. Enjoy the summer.
Thank you. You
Just
too.
stay healthy. Just stay healthy.
Amen.
To all of you, thank you very, very much for joining us on today's Seekers of Meaning. We do appreciate your time and your being with us. If you'd like to continue to support the work of the Jewish Sacred Aging and these Seekers of Meaning podcasts, we invite you to go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com. You'll find a very conveniently located donate button. If you click it, just follow the prompts. We really do appreciate it. If you or your organization or group would like to sponsor some of these podcasts, again, just email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. Seekers of Meaning is recorded at the Broadcast Center of Lubetkin Media in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And a big shout out to our genius technological producer. He's not a technological person. He's an expert in technology. I want to be clear on that in this world of AI. But thank you, Steve Lubetkin. To all of you, until we see each other again, thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate you. And remember, be kind to one another. Shalom.